What if I told you that the ground right under your feet isn't just dirt, but a non-stop source of electricity? And that according to some, this has been a known fact for over 100 years. Sounds pretty out there, right? Well, let's dig in and see what this is all about. Okay, so the source material we're diving into today, it doesn't pull any punches. It hits you right away with this, a pretty bold statement designed to make you stop and question everything you thought you knew about where we get our energy. And that right there, that's the big question we're digging into. We're going to break down the claims from a source that argues the answer is a huge and supposedly documented yes. All right, so how could this even work? To get our heads around it, we've got to start with the basic idea of how our planet works, electrically speaking, according to this source. The whole thing hinges on this one core idea. Picture the Earth as a giant natural battery. Seriously, the ground beneath our feet, it's got a negative charge. And way up there, about 60 miles up in the ionosphere, there's this massive positive charge. The theory is these two create a nonstop, planet-wide electrical circuit. And when you look at the numbers the source presents, whoa, they are just staggering. We're talking about a 400,000 volt difference between the ground and the sky. I mean, your wall outlet is what, 120 volts? This is on a completely different level. Just a massive amount of potential just sitting there. And it's not just sitting there waiting. Nope. The source claims there's a constant flow of 1,800 amps circling the globe 24/7. And this planetary battery, it's always getting recharged by the thousands of thunderstorms that are happening every single moment. It never turns off. Okay, so if all this juice is really there for the taking, how do you actually get it? Well, according to this source, it's not about brute force. It's about something way more elegant, resonance. And this is where things get really interesting because it leads us to a real scientifically documented thing called the Schumann resonance. You can kind of think of it like the Earth's natural heartbeat, its own electromagnetic pulse. It's this constant low-frequency hum in the space between the ground and the ionosphere. And here's the kicker. The source zooms in on one very specific number, 7.83 hertz. This, they say, is the fundamental frequency of our planet's electrical system. It's like the exact musical note you need to play to get in tune with the Earth's own energy.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. This sounds like something straight out of science fiction.
But here's the twist. The source argues this isn't new at all. It's old. It's just forgotten technology. So let's take a little trip back in time, based on the history the source lays out. Way back in the 1880s, you had telegraph systems that were supposedly running on what they called telluric currents, basically energy from the Earth, just by using buried metal plates. And then, of course, you have the big one, Nikola Tesla. The source claims his legendary Wardenclyffe Tower was built for this exact purpose, to tap into the Earth's resonance and send power wirelessly. And check this out. One of the most compelling bits of evidence the source brings up is from old telegraph station logs. Apparently, these logs show telegraphs sending messages even when their regular batteries were totally dead. The implication here? They had to be running on something else, the Earth's own power grid. Which, leads us to the million-dollar question. If this really worked, if you could get free energy just by sticking something in the ground, why in the world did we stop? It sounds way too good to be true. Well, the answer, according to the source, has nothing to do with science and everything to do with money. They point a finger at Tesla's famous backer, J.P. Morgan. The story goes that Morgan pulled the plug on the project after he asked Tesla a very simple question: where do we put the meter? So the argument isn't that the tech failed, it's that it was too successful to be profitable. Okay, so let's jump back to today. How do we get from these fascinating historical stories to what people are claiming online, that you can tap into this massive power source with just a simple stake in the ground? Right, so it's not just about jamming any old piece of metal into your backyard. The device the source describes is actually a finely tuned circuit. You've got a ferrite core to amplify the magnetic field, a copper coil wrapped around it, and the whole thing is tuned to vibrate at that magic number, 7.83 hertz. They say it's like a tuning fork. When you strike it at the right frequency, it resonates with the Earth's own energy and starts to collect and amplify it. And it's not just a one-trick pony. The source claims this stake is actually a quadruple threat, harvesting power from 4 different sources all at once. You've got the natural currents in the ground, that huge voltage potential between the Earth and the sky, tiny temperature changes in the soil, and even a basic battery effect between different metals.
But okay, the energy you're collecting is pretty low level. So, how do you turn that into something you can actually use? Well, the source points to a surprisingly simple and super cheap little gadget called a joule thief circuit. The claim is that this tiny thing, which can cost like $5, takes all that trickling energy from the ground and boosts it up to a usable 12 volts.
All right, so let's talk numbers. What kind of power are we talking about here? According to the source, a single one of these resonant stakes could pull in about 200 watts. But if you build a whole system, with a dozen stakes and some other parts, you could supposedly generate anywhere from 1,000 to 3,000 watts of continuous power. I mean, that's enough to seriously slash your home's energy bill. And that, of course, brings us right back to the elephant in the room. The one massive question that's probably been on your mind this whole time. The ultimate reality check. Yeah, I mean, it's the obvious question, right? If you can really do this, generate all this free power for a few $100, why isn't every single person doing it? What's the catch? What's the explanation from the source? Okay, so the source gives us 4 big reasons. First, that same old economic argument. You can't meter it, you can't sell it, so it got buried. Second, it's not a magic bullet that works everywhere. Your local geology really matters. Third, this isn't some plug-and-play IKEA kit. You need to have a bit of technical know-how. And finally, they claim there's a long history of powerful interests actively suppressing this kind of tech in favor of energy they could control and sell. So when you boil it all down, the source's final defense is basically this. Every single piece of the puzzle, the telluric currents, the Schumann resonance, the principles of induction, it's all established, documented science. Their argument is that all the ingredients are real, even if the final recipe has been hidden or forgotten. And that's where our source material leaves us, with a really provocative question. It stops asking, is this real? And instead, it throws down a challenge. The source basically says, look, the science is real, the history is there, and it leaves that final step, actually trying it out, up to you. So what do you think?